product and service offerings. He serves as the primary researcher and author for the association's annual trade report, Security Megatrends, which really is the impetus for this webinar. And that Security Megatrend comes out each year, usually in the fourth quarter. Jeff is also a regular speaker on trends, topics shaping the security industry. In addition, he serves as SIA's conference manager for Securing New Ground Conference, which is an event held in New York in the fall in October. It is an executive event, and it's in New York City, as I mentioned. And that is a 2 days of sharing insights and open discussions on the industry's future. Today, Jeff is going to cover 3 topics. These are the 3 main topics. Number 1, what to look for from AI-enabled security applications. Number 2, new threats for corporate security leaders. And our third topic, how to vet AI-powered technologies, or quite frankly, any advanced technology. So Jeff will give us insights into these 3 areas. At the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions, and we now turn it over to Jeff to take us through. So thank you.
John, thank you for the incredible introduction, and it's great to be here and support M3T. You mentioned veteran-owned business. One of the things I just want to plug, SIA does a lot for the industry, and one of the things we're creating right now is a new veterans and security community. And we're going to be doing a kickoff reception in Washington, D.C. the night before our government security conference, the Gov Summit, that's coming up in about a month from now. So that'll be on May 20th. So if anyone's interested in that, you don't have to be a veteran or a current service member. If you want to help support that, come on down and join us on that time. So we're trying to do good things for the industry. We do a lot of things like John mentioned, things like advocacy, standards development, education and training, certification, really try to raise the quality of our industry and keep us on the forefront as a place and hopefully attract the workforce of tomorrow. So so John, great to be here and enjoying this discussion with you. First of all, let me just say I am not an AI expert. As John mentioned, I get the pleasure of working on our annual report, the security megatrends that we've done since 2017. It is a free report. I'll put up a slide in a little bit that'll have a QR code if anybody wants to download it. It's free. It's not just we make it available for more than just the SIA members, so everyone can hopefully understand some of the leading trends in our industry. But I get to work with a lot of great SIA members who provide input on that report. So I don't want to take credit for it. I want to give the credit back to all of our incredibly intelligent members and experts and speakers who have provided and helped shape that report every year, and I guess they know who they are. So, one of the things that happened before this webinar is that John and his team with Heather and Bree put together some incredible survey questions. And John, if you're all right with it, I'm going to bring up the first one there, and we can maybe start by talking about those.
Absolutely. This and just for everyone's appreciation of that Security Megatrends publication, that publication in our team's hands is what inspired the idea of starting to go out to the prospecting customer base and talk about AI.
Yeah. So you guys asked some great questions, and I put up a slide that Heather and Bree had created here. And this overwhelming response here, they're asking, how do you feel about AI? And, what's the most important question of all of these that you would want to ask? And you can see there, 86% asking, how do we trust AI, right? And I think a lot of the other answers, how do we know it's ethical? How do we know it's safe? I don't know much about it. All those, they'll sort of support that same sort of concern that people are just have a lot of questions about it. It's interesting that I think that only a little over 3% said, hey, they have no concerns at all. So you're probably feeling like pretty much all of us feel that excited, concerned, wanting to learn more, right? So, yeah. Let's see if I can get the slides working here. There we go. All right. So this was the next question that M3T did. Which of the following concerns you the most about trusting AI? John, I mean, looking at the results here, there's, privacy and security misuse questions. Did that surprise you?
You know, the surprise was from the very first question of just the volume of responses that came in on this topic. As after the first one being of such a concern around trust, yeah, privacy is going to be
Yeah.
following trust very closely.
And that's I think matches what we've seen in our research for the security megatrends. And it's not the questions that you sometimes hear that AI is going to replace all the jobs or something like that. I think, we've seen technology come through the world repeatedly. John, you were kind of joking earlier about the combustion engine, the invention of the internet, and I think we've seen that they're not necessarily eliminating jobs, they're changing jobs and requiring new skill sets. So yeah, it's absolutely the privacy and security misuse or misapplication on that. We've got some, and I've got a slide later on that that's in the deck. It talks about just how you can vet those technologies as well. So let's jump on to the next one. Which factor would most significantly increase your trust in AI technologies? Almost 91% transparency, right? And I think that's essential. That really matches SIA and SIA's Data Privacy Advisory Board, together with the work of my colleague Ron Hawkins, has put together some guidance on data privacy and AI technologies kind of overlap a lot because AI requires a lot of data. So and transparency, right, is the key point there as well in terms of the guidelines. So great data here. Kind of to set up the stage. And just to jump in, I mean, John, as I mentioned, I've been looking through some top headlines lately. I put 5 of them on the screen here. So this topic of trust of AI is not unique to those of us who are in the world of security and deploying security technologies. You can see here that one from Tech Brew, which is a great sort of tech-based, tech-focused newsletter, daily newsletter, reports on an Adobe study about AI misinformation, Axios with, public trust thinking across the board, CNBC about its, executives and workers are worried about AI trust also. So just a consistent thing there. Yes, even the San Francisco Standard, trust nurses, not AI. I mean, this is something that's pervasive in every industry, and rightfully so. I mean, I put the last headline on there just to showcase, the world that you can be up against. This is a story out of, I believe it's Hong Kong, where a finance clerk accidentally, got deep faked by a video claiming to be the company's CFO and paid out $25 million. So you can see the security use case or fear there is very real. So anyway, there's your doom and gloom slides.
Right.
Just jump in the megatrends. There's that QR code that I promised. If anyone wants to download, I'll leave that up for a little bit. Again, this is like John said, SIA has published this in the fourth quarter every year for the last about 7 years. So great report and tries to characterize the top 10 trends in our industry on there. And for the 2024 report, I'll just jump over this. These are the top 10 trends that were identified by our focus groups, by our surveys, by our advisory board on that. And what's really unique, and I've got it highlighted there, is AI holds the top 4 spots on this list. So the security of AI, and I should jump back. This is really unique. We've had obviously trends like cybersecurity, which we now consider a foundational trend, not even a megatrend. It's just something that's underlying to our industry. Things like this at the top in the past. But I think because of the impact of AI and how fast it's moving, it was unique that we broke it out into the top 4 trends for this time. So yeah, security of AI. When we say security of AI, as you read the report, you'll see that's a lot of that's about the trust of AI. Number 2, it's really AI is converting the world of video surveillance into visual intelligence. And then obviously 3 now, generative AI, right? We all watched ChatGPT just make the incredible waves as it came to life and got wide adoption there. There's some application there for our industry. And then number 4, regulation of AI. And regulation of AI obviously ties right back to the trust of AI into the security of AI. It's responsive to that. So yeah, just jump in. One of the things that I think is important to cover is what is AI. I put together this. I'm not going to read through it today, but there are a lot of different levels of AI, from machine learning all the way up to deep learning. I've got some notes on there. Um, but basically, as you kind of go up that ladder into the more advanced AI, you're moving more away from the human having to train the machine and provide the reinforcement to the machine, learning on its own and providing its own reinforcement on there. So what is, and I think eventually you get into the world of what I think what we think of as AI and where we're applying it today is really more on the machine learning and ANN side. And then the future, I think, is what you might call general AI, which is just sort of this world where, AI is as smart as the human brain itself, can solve all these tasks. But again, we're in the world of narrow AI, AI applied to specific tasks. And so that's the takeaways there, right? AI, is good around things that can be, repetitive, that humans will need to train it. And so that works, well in things like, again, like machine vision, those sort of applications there. So today's applications.
Jeff, if I could,
yeah, John.
I'm sorry, Jeff, to interrupt. If I could just give an example for our guests, in just the span of a short 2 years, the machine learning and deep learning differentiation in the machine learning world, to say identify a car, they needed to see the bulk of that car. And in the deep learning world today, they can just see a small portion of the car and call it a car. In the machine learning world, it was challenging for the differentiation of a car, a van, a truck, a bicycle, or a motorcycle. In the deep learning world, that differentiation now is routinely performed. So that's just a kind of a real world application of those phrases.
And obviously, an incredible application there, particularly in the world of security, as you try to associate meta information with, the video surveillance records that you're creating. So, tremendous opportunity. So again, some of the applications there today, obviously, the natural language processing, the ChatGPT world has been really all the buzz. But I think in our industry, certainly seeing things like the hearing, the sound recognition, audio analytics, certainly the world of vision and visual intelligence, and then potentially robotics, right? Where we're starting to see some organizations apply robotics, security robotics in their facilities. And of course, plenty of other robotics as well. This is the megatrend number one, security of AI, right? And it's these are the 3 points that we kind of looked at. It's trust of AI, it's the ethical application of AI, and it's the cybersecurity of AI. You have to have all those, right? It's the transparency, the consent, the disclosure in there. I think that's if you go back to the survey question that the team at M3T did, you're seeing that right here as well. So and on the cybersecurity front, we're obviously seeing risks of data poisoning and AI being used to hack systems there as well. We've got some great data in the report on that point. So as we kind of look forward, I'll run really quickly through those other trends. The trend number 2 of AI, visual intelligence, not video surveillance. The point of this is, right, the world of video security, it's such a dominant world of security technologies, the one which we all use or play, is really being transformed by this evolution from machine learning to neural networks. And that video platform is becoming 10, 100, maybe even 1,000 times more powerful. What we're seeing today, I think, initially, and John, I'd love to hear where you're seeing about transforming video search is one place. So is that something you're starting to see from your end and your client demand as well?
Over the last 5, 8 years, 10 years, the ability to do mass video search. So what's that mean? That means days or weeks of video over multiple camera counts. That was restricted to only the companies that could afford the most powerful computer processing, and that's changing. I'm not saying it's now available to every man, every company, every organization, but it's definitely coming down in cost. And the lower it comes down in cost, the more these video systems are delivering in terms of value to the end users. There's a great video. It's been around for a lot of years of of a street in a city that the law enforcement wants to do a stakeout to identify where the drug distribution house is, and instead they put the video up there, the camera up there, and ran that kind of intense processing video search, and we're able to figure that out in a matter of a couple of weeks of video, and they identified. So that's just a small example of how large quantities of video can be processed and provide real value to the end user.
And I think that's a great point about how it's really being democratized as the technologies come out of the very high end. I mean, if you think about the internet that we all are using, that we're using right now for this webinar, I mean, there was a point at which this was really in sort of the world of the DARPA, right? So and now it's in all of our hands for our kids to stream shows. All right. Generative AI. So I'll kind of focus on the trust side of this. Obviously, we talked about the deep fakes earlier, and I think that's a big concern for a lot of corporate security leaders, particularly, I'll use the role of executive protection, right? I mean, executive protection was, protecting the physical, a lot of times the physical well-being and direct assets of your executives. Now, all of a sudden, you're worried about, what's their presence in deep fake content that could shape stock prices, and employee actions, et cetera. So a lot of risks there, but obviously a lot of, direct applications for our industry. I'm on the positive, right? Things like chat support, being able to use AI for sentiment analysis, to mine sort of the social media content, and to understand, what's the sentiment, and what are people saying about your organization, potentially detect actions or risk actions before they can occur. Obviously, from a business standpoint, things like, productivity hacking and content creation, right? And then, of course, just general project management as well. One of the things, and John, maybe we can talk about this a little bit, is we did a session at ISC West just a couple of weeks ago, had a couple of great, I guess you call them CSOs, from two very tech-forward companies that are certainly exploring AI applications for their companies. We asked them, hey, what do you really need out of AI? Like, as you hear about this promise of AI, you're out on these trade show floors, seeing the technologies. I'll tell you what they recapped to the session there. One was obviously anything that can help them reduce response time. That's going to be useful. So some of the examples would be, can it facilitate knowledge for the team members or security officers or anyone who's responding to a security incident and do it well, right? To augment their knowledge there. One of them said solving for active aggressors, right? So I think things like AI in the world of weapons detection. Obviously very dramatic risk there, and so that was one of the things that he was looking for. Detection of anomalies. This is, I think, a really good application. So, and we're already seeing some applications of AI in the space. So, detecting problematic cameras, a camera's down, or a camera with image issues. Detecting, looking through all the data of, forced doors or alarm data that can really pile up, particularly at these large GSOCs where they have so much data coming in, to understand what's really important out of all that, right? What's the context? That is a forced door, somebody propped it so they can wheel in the documents that they need for today's meeting, or is it, are we looking at a situation where it's that kind of alarm is happening in a unusual situation. So we mentioned robotics earlier. I think there's some interest in generative AI for case management, right? So how do you manage your security cases? And then I think the future, I mean, this is, I still think a little more wishful thinking, is to really detect all manner of abnormal behaviors. But again, I think that's more in that general AI promise of the future. So John, I mean, what are you getting asked for in terms of potential AI applications?
So in the world of the security provider, we've always been taught to focus our solutions on the deter, detect, deny model. And I think we're seeing AI make an impact right now is in deterring and detecting. And so I can give you an example of a very large organization has multiple campuses, and they have a desire to secure the perimeter of their campuses. They funded an appropriate fence for one campus. They don't have that funding for the other campus just yet. So with today's technology, we can actually do a virtual fence. And using the artificial intelligence capabilities in this new visual intelligence world, combining radar and some other capabilities, this customer can have real-time awareness of any types of movement that occur from where they determine their virtual perimeter to be into their property. So again, deter, detect, deny, we're seeing it as a practitioner starting to make a difference in proactive deterrence, because it is a detection capability that's far and away new and beyond what we've had previously.
It's a good application. And is it also empowering their response or automating their responses?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, because you're becoming aware, literally, as long as your real-time network is communicating, you're becoming aware as the event is unfolding, as opposed to forensically.
And that's something we're seeing, having some conversations in the last month, in the world of alarm monitoring, or just any security monitoring in general, right?
Yeah.
If you take about these monitoring centers that have to process, thousands of calls or, alarm notices, through there, they're dealing with challenges of workforce, right? Like so many industries are, and having a talented workforce in there. And so they're looking, how do we automate that space as well? Automate it for responses, automate it for detection of, is this legit, or is this a false alarm, false alert type situation? So that's a big concern as well. Again, that's the reducing response time and automating things that could otherwise be missed. So, yeah.
I think one more, Jeff, would be again in terms of detect. We're really pushing the ability to know who a person is if their image is in our database. We're pushing that ability out to the focal viewpoint of a camera in some cases, or to an external reader. So facial recognition is real, and it absolutely is effective.
And that could be an entirely separate webinar into the world of FR and all this. But actually, that segues us really well until megatrend number 4, which is regulation of AI, which definitely ties back to facial recognition, which has been a lot of the focus of regulation.
During this session, or this section, Jeff, could you speak to what Maryland is thinking of enacting? Are you up on that at all?
I am, but I actually would point to my colleague, Jake Parker, who's our Director of Government Relations there, and a blog post that is on our site right now about that bill. Because Jake and his colleagues in the government relations team were very influential in that legislation, in making sure there was some, permission for, law enforcement to continue to use facial recognition. They do that a lot. There was a situation in Virginia where there was a lot of pullback to having facial recognition access for law enforcement, and Jake and his team, were very effective with the Virginia legislature in terms of ensuring there were rights, to use facial recognition there. So that's on there. In fact, I have a list now. This is outdated, and the reason this is outdated because as soon as we put this together for that session at ISC West, to John's point, the Maryland bill came out maybe 2 days later, and certainly enough, that was in there. So there are a lot of legislation activities that, related to AI that anyone needs to consider before adopting it. Some of these mentioned in here, and again, this is more of an eye chart, not expecting to read this. This is just to kind of wow you, just the amount that's in there. This was created by, again, on that panel with one of our end users who was speaking, and just the items that are on his team's list that they have to consider before they deploy AI technologies. And they're a global company, so obviously you're seeing here, across the world. Yeah, absolutely. From our end, It's happening at the state level. A lot of things happening at the state levels on AI, and particularly facial recognition. There is clearly, obviously, the EU AI Act, and very soon, so we'll have an in-depth analysis that Jake and his team are working on, probably within the next 2 weeks, to come out on our site. So check that out when it's in there, and what that relates to our world. So anyway, dive into this. Not gonna hold that up there, but just a lot of data points there as well. You know, the chart that I've got up on the screen there, John, is as a question that we asked at Securing New Ground, our executive conference, and then surveyed as part of the megatrends is, you know, which of the following factors would be limiting your expansion to AI? It somewhat evenly split. Obviously, public perception of AI technologies, again, that trust issue was 54%. Audience for this was a lot of companies who are developing AI technologies. So government regulation was a big concern for them as well, you know, 40% in that space. So this is something that you have to be aware of if you're looking to deploy these technologies. And to help that out, I'll just jump in. One of the things I wanted to put up on the screen today, this, I won't say the company that this came from, but this came from a very large technology company based in the US, and this was their vetting process for how they vet, you know, AI or any advanced technology. So again, you can see right here some of the things that are incredibly important to it. It starts with data, right? Data retention. Data retention comes back. You know, how critical is it to have that data? And then obviously things like the penetration testing and usage policies that come back to play this. So we'll kind of leave that up, but this is probably a good model for any organization looking to analyze deployment of large AI systems. Now, I think this is perhaps more applicable to more complex, advanced AI systems than some of the machine learning type platforms that are out there today that may be like, you know, like John was example, you know, recognizing vehicles and things like that. But it's an important process. John, when you're working with your clients, what does the conversation look like in terms of the vetting of the technology?
As far as the vetting of the technology, in most cases, the customers are running solutions that are slowly becoming AI enabled. So the vetting of the system itself that's running the AI has largely already been done. It's a question of, does that AI function in my environment? Will I allow it to? More of the regulatory ethical questions than it is the technology performance questions and technology application outcomes. So it's early. A lot of the conversations, quite literally, so far this year are what artificial intelligence capabilities do I have in my current system? And you know, you can go through that process, and once those are identified, the next question is, what's the best way to deploy them? Well, what do you want to know? What do you want to do? So I think AI starts with, in many cases, with questions, identify a problem, and then is there solutions that can be deployed in a cost-effective, ethical, regulatory compliant manner to provide more data in a more timely manner?
And I think your point there about, you know, identifying the problems first. And I think that's the message that when we held that session at ISC West with, you know, 2 top CSOs, as they look at AI technologies, really any technology, right? They need to think about, you know, what are your fundamental business problems first? You know, for one of them, obviously, it's that concern about, you know, the active aggressors, you know, persons with, you know, with weaponry entering their facilities. For other folks, it's, you know, their reliability issue. But, you know, come to the table with your specific problem to solve it. And, you know, I think the other thing is that there's some companies out there that are willing to work with you or through their vendors to develop solutions specific to your problems. You know, if it's a large enough problem that can scale to develop a solution on. So that's been really important. You know, this vetting process, I think, can be applied also, I'll say, to any AI usage in your organization, right? So this isn't, exclusive to applying AI for security technologies. In fact, this came out of really kind of a business unit of theirs that was developing AI solutions that were not, that ran on their customers' data, if you will. So, but it directly applies back to security. So, this is how you build trust, right? You get back to the points from the M3T survey. It's focused on transparency. As SIA has recommended, consent and disclosure. Do really good vetting of the technologies. This is how you build trust in that world. So, yeah. So listen, I mean, I think these are some of the key points we wanted to address today. John, do we want to do some questions, or I know we've come up on over 30 minutes and held your time. So
we have we are now opening up for questions. Ask all of you to unmute when if you choose to ask a question, and we'll Bree and Heather will wait and see what comes in.
Well, I can ask the question, then see if anybody else has any. So, Jeff, in your opinion, what are some examples of AI that have been used unethically?
Okay. So I would say there's some really good examples in the video space, facial recognition space, of using AI to try to classify and detect people of specific races or religions with ill intent on that, right? Not in our country, but elsewhere. I think that's probably the most dramatic one that I would point to. Yeah. I would say, fortunately here, it's we haven't seen those kind of situations of applications of technology. We certainly have seen some places where people have used AI types of technology on people without consent, and then have been pulled back from that. I saw one where there was a vending machine running sentiment analysis on its customers. Maybe you saw that in the headlines as well. Is there specific harm there? I don't know, but it's one of those things where you're probably none of us on this call would expect a vending machine to be analyzing our sentiment. So it's a transparency and a consent and disclosure type of situation there. And again, can you say any harm was specifically done there? No, other than the harm of trusting of technology, right? Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
Jeff, I'll ask one. So I saw that you had posted about the headline with $25 million that was scammed from a financial advisor within the company.
Yeah.
How are you aware of anything with laws? How laws are keeping up with that, or pertaining to AI?
I'm not sure on the deep fakes. I know there have to be laws on that space. And I will say that there are companies that are coming out with solutions for that as well. I met one at ISC West that I ran into and spent a little time talking to them at their booth, that are basically, companies that are processing video, for example, like that deep fake video that was used, and kind of giving it a confidence score of how legit do they, think this video is. Hard to say, but I think that could be fairly normal as a function in terms of video content in the future.
Yeah. I think it's one of those where it's just the law has to catch up with, as technology evolves.
That's absolutely right. I mean, if you think about the EU's AI Act, right, and when that was developed and when it was implemented during that period, right, like ChatGPT came to the forefront. During that period, and when they started writing that did not exist. So, I mean, any of these legislators, I think, are challenged to keep up with how fast the technology is moving right now. You're absolutely right, Bree.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just saw that Tennessee passed legislations allowing or enabling teachers in schools to train and carry weapons. And I'm wondering how that integrates with the security that you would have, intrusion, door security, that kind of thing. How's AI tie into all that?
John, you want to take that?
Direct answer there, Barry, is I don't know how AI ties into allowing teachers to be armed in the classroom. I do know that there's AI that is functioning today, commercially available and applied, that will detect through a camera the presence of a weapon when it's held in an unconcealed manner. But beyond that, I don't know the answer to your question.
Yeah. And there are technologies that are trying to solve that on a concealed scenario as well. Obviously, a little more very challenging, on both of those to recognize. I'll put a plug there in for one of the organizations that SIA helps support and co-created. It's an organization called the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools. It's on the web at passk12.org. About an 80-page free download of guidelines that's really process focused. A lot of the implementation measures there are no cost for K through 12 schools to employ. And then obviously as you get more advanced, you can, it recommends tiers of how to look at where do you adopt more advanced technologies. But huge issue. I know that's a passion topic for all of us.
That PASS guideline and checklist is the single most valuable, no charge tool out there, and it's phenomenal. We use it all the time. It deals with well beyond electronic and physical security. It's policies, it's procedures, it's order of actions, and it's built around the perimeters of your typical soft target, from the building property to the parking lot property to the building perimeter to the internal perimeters. And it's way beyond the things that we've been discussing here today in terms of how comprehensive it is as a security program approach, as opposed to just a security, not just, but as opposed to a security solution. It's a program.
It's a great way to describe it.
Any other questions or comments?
If I may.
Hey, Lyle.
Yeah. Hey, John. How are you doing?
Good, man.
I just want to make a comment about the question of regulations. From the regulations perspective, and us in the community being able to take actions even before the regulations come in, because we can't just simply sit and wait in the face of all these possibilities and risks that may develop from AI. And my mind just ran to, in response to the question that I'm not sure what the name is, the question asked about the instances of malintent. Companies or probably need to start looking at policies and procedures that, as they develop, they have to be kind of flexible to be able to. For example, I'm just using the situation with the $25 million payout. Under those circumstances, companies now may probably have to build in checks and balances that, if something either over a particular limit or coming from a particular person that is maybe an unusual approach, to build in additional processes internally, just simply to double check, instead of waiting for what the regulation says whenever they say that. So I think we just have to look closely at how things are developing and be quick in terms of coming up with our own internal solutions. Just a comment. Yeah.
That's very valuable.
Yeah, I think it's a great comment. I would think companies are thinking about that as well, particularly with that sort of world of deep fakes and major financial transactions, that there's probably some sort of double verification that needs to happen now. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not so easy as go ahead and do something, deploy something and ask, wait for the regulation to say you cannot do it. It's not that simple. All right, folks. Anything else before we close up?
Well, John, I appreciate you having me on the program today as we wrap up, and honored to be participate with you on this program. So
it's a pleasure, Jeff. We appreciate you and Don and the SIA team cutting you loose for an hour or two. We had a prep call on this and had a lot of fun. We knew it was going to be a fun one. So thanks to all our guests for coming. I could just share a couple of points with you. We hope that you found this interesting and informative for sure. Within 24 hours, we will provide you with a recording of today's webinar and a short survey. If you could please respond to that survey, that'd be great. Jeff, thanks very much again for your time and your expertise. We encourage you to visit SIA's website and check out the great benefits of possibly becoming a SIA member. And then lastly, at M3T, we thank you for attending, and we certainly have some exclusive offers for those of you who've attended this webinar or who watched the recording. Please contact us to learn more about that.